But I always tell people when you're getting started in real estate, it's important to just focus on finding a really good deal, because then you'll be able to put all the pieces together in the puzzle. What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Derek, aka Flippingahouse, and if you're new here, we talk real estate, financial literacy, and just how to get better in life. And today's topic is actually going to be centered around real estate, but it could make your life a lot better, because we're going to be talking about how to acquire assets and how to actually get free assets or even get paid to get an asset. I know it sounds crazy, you may not believe it, but I'm gonna give you guys some facts and a deal breakdown from an actual BRRRR deal that I did back in 2019 and why it was the perfect BRRRR and what BRRRR means, how to get started. So stick around, it's gonna be a good one. Now, it doesn't matter if you're new to real estate or experienced, you may or may not have heard the term BRRRR, which just is an acronym for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. And it's just simply a strategy that can be used in your investing tool belt to help you acquire assets with zero money out of pocket, or you could even get paid to buy a house, which is what I'm going to talk about today, and give you guys my personal experience from my first ever BRRRR deal that I did back in 2019. And I was actually able to get paid to buy a house, and I'm not talking about small chips either. So let's get into it. Now, first off, let's take it back to 2019. This is a time in my life that we were wholesaling a lot of houses, and if you're not sure what wholesaling is, just check out some of my other videos. But basically, we were just selling contracts. But we got to the point where we realized it was super important to start keeping some of these assets. We couldn't just keep giving away equity, and I'm so happy that we started doing it. And at the end, you'll see why and how this can snowball into something even bigger. Now, initially when we got this lead, this was a motivated seller. He received a cold call from us and we went out to meet him at the property. Now, this was a home that was in a great area, and the price that he was asking is unheard of, and we went out to meet with him to see what we could put together. Now, initially when he wanted to sell the property, he was looking to get around $70,000, and with building rapport and negotiating with him, we were able to get the property under contract for $60,000. Now, it's important that I break down these numbers and show you guys as I go through the deal what it looks like, because if you're like me, you're a visual learner, and so it's easier to understand if I can see what is going on. So this is actually a picture of the house that we bought, and like I said, we got that under contract for $60,000. Now, me and my business partner have been in business together for a long time, and we always wanted to be fair. So I asked him if I could keep the property. He said that's fine, and I paid him an assignment fee of $10,000. So technically, when we went to the closing table, we bought the property, or I bought the property for $70,000. That was the actual purchase price. Remember, we got it under contract for $60,000. I gave my partner Ben $10,000, and we closed at $70,000. Now, it's important that I point this out, not only to see how you can get creative with these strategies, even though it's a little bit more technical, but also so you understand the buy part of the BRRRR deal is that number right there. So we bought this house for $70,000, and then I brought in a contractor who would then give me a bid on the property. Now, when I brought the contractor in, he hit me with a bid, and it was a little bit higher than I initially wanted to pay. I think it was around $37,000, but I ended up talking him down to around $30,000, and we got started on the project. But once again, it's important for me to point that out, because that is the R of the equation. That is the rehab. So we've bought the property and we're starting the rehab process of it. Now, I'm gonna take a time to step out here, because a lot of you all may be like, Derek, I don't have $70,000 cash. How can you just go buy a home that quick? Neither did I at the time. But I always tell people when you're getting started in real estate, it's important to just focus on finding a really good deal, because then you'll be able to put all the pieces together in the puzzle. Now, another thing I want to point out is why I was okay with purchasing this home for $70,000 is because the home's value at the time, or so we thought, was around $180,000 to $185,000. Now, I want to point that out because when you're looking at getting a hard money loan, which is what I used to purchase this property, it's basically a short-term high interest loan that is used for flipping or acquiring rentals. If you have no idea, check out this other video on how to fund your first flip. where it goes into detail about how these work and how you can acquire one. But let's get back to it. So I tell you the value of $180,000 because when lenders look at real estate deals, especially investment deals, their safe number is 70% of that $180,000 value, or 70% of the after repair value, or ARV. Now that's important because that means that they are willing to give me 70% of $180,000, which is $126,000. Now that would include my purchase of the $70,000, plus they would even be willing to give me money for the repairs up to $126,000, which my actual loan, to keep numbers nice and easy, was $125,000. So we bought the house for $70,000, we're doing the repairs for $30,000, and that puts us all in around $100,000. Plus we had some closing costs in there, which really brings us to around a flat number of $105,000. Now we got started on the rehab and it took us about a month and a half to complete. And to be honest, this was my first time ever hiring contractors. And if I'm being completely honest with you, I did everything wrong when it comes to this deal, but I'll make another video about it. But it doesn't matter because I still won in the end. And that's why I go back to, it's so important to find a really good deal. So a month and a half in, we've completed the rehab. We're all in at that $105,000 number. And then I'm gonna reach out, or I had already started talking to a few long-term lenders that do refinances and cash out refinance. Now this is very similar to if you live in a home or you own a home and you decide you have a bunch of equity and you want to refinance. A lot of people don't know this, but using the BRRRR strategy, and the reason it's so powerful is because you can buy a property, and as long as it's been, I think it's 2 to 3 months, you can then refinance. It just depends on the product loan that you are offered, or the one that you decide to go with based on your credit. Is it going to be an asset-based loan or a conventional loan? But these are all things that I talk about in some other videos that I have. But I want to keep it as simple as possible for you guys. So we bought the house for $70,000. We're all in at $105,000. And now a lender says that they will give me 70% of the ARV. So what does that mean? That means that when we go to close on this transaction, they will actually give me up to $125,000. And if you're catching on right about now, you see that that's money that I can actually end up putting in my pocket. But now that we've rehabbed the home, we've bought the home for $70,000, we've rehabbed it for another $30,000 plus closing costs, we're all in at $105,000. Now we can list the property with a realtor, and we can do the next R, or the rent part of the BRRRR strategy. So we've bought it, we've rehabbed it, and now we are going to rent it or find a really good tenant. Now it's super important to focus on finding a good tenant, because not only did you just put all this money into this asset, but the bank is gonna look at having a good tenant, a solid lease, when they go to refinance, which is the next step we'll talk about in just a second. Now there's not too much to expand on when it comes to renting out the property, other than I will tell you, take your time. And that's exactly what I did. It took me another 3 to 4 weeks to find a good tenant, but now it is 2022, and that tenant has been one of the best tenants that I've ever had compared to my other rentals. And I'm pretty sure she's gonna be willing to re-sign the lease and continue to pay down all this debt that I have on this property. So take your time, don't feel rushed, set some parameters, and find a good tenant. So now that we've found a good tenant, and we've already been looking for people to refinance the loan out for, I've already been talking to a couple of different lenders. I found one that I felt the most comfortable with. And just like a refinance on a property that you may be living in, we are just getting out of this short-term loan and getting into like a 30-year fixed. You could even do a 20 or a 15-year mortgage. But the whole idea of getting out of the short-term loan is dropping from that 10 to 12% down to a conventional 3 to 5%, or even if you do a non-conventional refinance, it would be in the 6 to maybe 7%. Realistically, it could go either way depending on your credit. However, this is why it's important to speak to multiple lenders. So we've bought the home, we've rehabbed it, we've found a good tenant, we've rented it, and now we are going to look at refinancing it. And like I told you before, while I was finding a tenant, I was already talking with lenders. I found one that I was most comfortable with, and I put in my application to start start a conventional refinance. Now, I will tell you guys, it doesn't matter if you're doing a non-qualifying mortgage or you're doing a conventional, it's always gonna help you to have good credit. So if you don't have credit or good credit, don't let that stop you, but know that that's something that you should start working on, because even though we're taught how to use credit in a bad way, credit and leverage is so important when it comes to real estate. So make sure yours is in line to set yourself up for better success. Now, when we look at the refinance, a bank or a traditional mortgage, they're looking to give you 70% of that value, which is why I emphasize the $180,000 or what we thought it was worth. And you know, they're willing to give us up to $125,000. Even though I'm all in at $105,000, you guys are probably starting to catch on about what's about to happen when I go to refinance this home. And if you're keeping up, you probably guessed it, they're gonna pay me to buy this home. But let's talk about what actually happened with the deal, because I got very lucky. So when I started my refinance process, you have to get an appraisal on the home to confirm that it's actually worth the value that it is. So like I said, when we first acquired this property, I felt very comfortable around the $180,000 to maybe max $185,000. But what happened is, in the time frame of the 3 to 4 months that I was rehabbing the property, placing a tenant in place, and getting everything ready, there was actually a couple new sales. And the craziest thing happened. The home appraised for even more. And not just a little bit, like $20,000 more. So let's look at the new math. So when I got the appraisal back, instead of the $180,000 to $185,000 that I thought the home was worth, with the new sales and the new data, the home appraised for $203,000, which is insane. That's $23,000 more than we thought it was gonna appraise for. But even though we always run our numbers conservatively, that's what I like to just call the cherry on top, because that's not always going to happen, and I didn't plan for that to happen, but that just means I could pull out even more money, because 70% of $203,000 is $142,000. That's $40,000 that I could basically pull out of this home. And no, I'm still gonna have the home, and I'm gonna have a cash flowing asset. So if you guys are seeing how all these things stack using the BRRRR method, you can literally create wealth, because even though you're still 70% into the deal, the home is worth $203,000. I still am adding over 60 grand to my net worth by doing this one deal. So what did I do? So even though that was super surprising and I wanted to pull out more money, I felt like the smartest thing to do for me is stick with my original numbers. I understood that this was an amazing deal, but this is a property I plan on keeping for a very long time, and you can refinance some lenders every 6 months if you want to. So I knew that option was always going to be there. Since I had ran my numbers so conservatively, I decided to only take out an extra $5,000 to $7,000 because I still wanted to leave all this equity, and if I needed to refinance down the road and pull the money out, that option was there. But I ended up pulling out around $33,000, and then after all the closing costs and everything and the dust settled, I was all into this property for $133,000, and that was what my new loan was. So after closing costs and everything, I walked away with $27,000, a free house, a cash flowing asset, and I added even more wealth to my net worth because I still have over 70 grand in equity. And looking back, it was the best decision ever, because now, even since 2019, that home is worth closer to $240,000. So that means I have over $100,000 in equity in a home that I was actually paid $27,000 to buy. Now, if you made it this far in the video, let me give you the most exciting part about this deal. The $27,000 that I was paid to buy this house was tax-free. Because it's a cash out refinance, I'm just reclaiming my equity. So not only did I get out of a higher interest, expensive loan, I was able to lower my interest rate, lower my monthly payment, cash flow around $350 a month. I gained $70,000 in equity, and I got $27,000 tax-free. I had to let that set for a second because this is the power of the BRRRR method. And let's recap on everything that I just talked about. We bought this house, we buy for $70,000, we rehabbed it for $30,000, I rented it out for $1,500 a month, I refinanced it, and the appraisal came back at $203,000, $20,000 over. So I was able to pull up 70% of that value, and now the most important part of the R, we're gonna repeat that process. And now I think I'm on my 7th or 8th BRRRR. And this year we're aggressively buying BRRRRs and increasing my wealth. And on the first 2 BRRRR deals that I ever did, I now have over 200 grand in equity on those 2 deals alone, all from using the strategy. Now, even though the second one I didn't get paid, I technically got a free house and it cash flows. So when you're thinking about real estate, it's so important to learn these terms, these methods, and get around people a lot smarter than you so that you can start creating wealth for your family. Because it was just 5.5 years ago that I was waiting tables. And if someone would have came to me and told me that I could get a free house and get paid $27,000 to buy it, I would have laughed in their face and not thought it was possible. But it's true, guys. And I will keep these properties forever. And honestly, what I plan to do is keep buying them. And in 5 to 10 years, you can do portfolio BRRRR deals and then pull out even more equity and go buy bigger deals. And that's where the repeat comes in. So once again, BRRRR, buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. Simple strategy. Use it. Everybody does it, even with commercial deals. And if you guys made it this far in the video, I truly appreciate you. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn on post notifications. And if you want to see what my day-to-day looks like as a full-time real estate investor, make sure you check out some of my vlogs and other videos that I have on my channel. If you're not already, make sure you're following me on Instagram and TikTok because I drop daily content there. But until next time, guys, peace.